So in part 6, I said I was going to jump into talking about the Santa Cruz Batman and rescuing the growers up in Northern California. But I realized there's a gap there because as I last left it, I'm in this homeless camp in Santa Rosa voluntarily. And I showed some pictures from that on part 6. So where do I go from there? I'll try to summarize it real quick. Eventually, after enjoying Sonoma County services, I eventually got a job down in San Jose proper, and it's a great job. It was a small company that had kind of a stealth indium phosphide fab, and I had the same thing in Ann Arbor. And if you know anything about indium phosphide, it's a super expensive process, but you can run it in a micro scale. And for optoelectronic devices, you can make a lot of devices on a 3-inch process, let alone a 6-inch process. But I'm kind of nerding out, so that's what kind of got me down into the Bay Area proper. Why am I telling this story as part of the Santa Cruz Batman? Because eventually that led to tripling the sales of that company. It's a 5-person company, and to really see how the talent in Silicon Valley is real. It's the networking, the speed of decisions, the autonomy you have. You can move real fast, and you can, despite the expense of the rent and whatnot, if you know what you're doing, you can actually find industrial space quite affordable because there's a lot of it. There's been a lot of downsizing on physical space. And if you know your contacts, you can get your services and your vendors sometimes for 10 cents on the dollar compared to what I experienced when I was in the Midwest going through the front door. Long story short, I had a wonderful time for about 2 years, and that company got bought out as well by a super large company. And I enjoyed seeing what another Fortune 500 company was like in Silicon Valley. And but of course, making a gear shift from having the autonomy you have in a small company to a large company where layers are between you and your customers, and the customer relationships are difficult because they want to call you direct, and you're no longer in that kind of organization. You have layers of marketing and sales force. It was time to move on again, and it was a good time because it was a really nice 2.5-year run down in Silicon Valley, making a difference. So that's when I actually moved into the Santa Cruz Mountains and started a relationship with a woman who's now my wife. I won't talk anymore about it. But we lived in a very austere cabin up in the Los Gatos address, but really up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And that's when I, discovered Santa Cruz. And having been a skateboarder as a teenager, I bought an electric skateboard to experiment with it, and ended up really enjoying my downtime between jobs, just going out and skating around on that thing. And it's easier to get around during the wee hours because there's no cars. And so therein began, not only my jobs in Silicon Valley showed me, you drive by Stanford and you would see 40 RVs parked along, the park blocks there, and some of them are homeless, but a lot of them are PhD students. And then you go through Oakland, and for a while I did Lyft driving, kind of voluntarily because I thought it would be a good way to make fast cash, and it was. And it was a way to really find your way around the Bay Area. If you've lived there, it takes a while. But once you become an Uber or a Lyft driver, you kind of learn in about 3 weeks because you go everywhere. So this afforded me to see how the people working in Fortune 500 in Silicon Valley with, starting salaries of $250K if you're a new engineer, and then going up, really expensive $4,000, $5,000 mortgages, to people living in cardboard boxes on the side of the street, just down the street. And in Oakland, it was close to Detroit, but a little worse because you can live outside in Oakland year round. The Bay Area is really quite nice. And so there's the setup. Now I'm I'm in Silicon Valley, but I have spare time to go visit Santa Cruz, and it's a good time to electric skateboard at night. And I happen to be wearing a Batman t-shirt because it was my favorite t-shirt. So I'm skateboarding around Santa Cruz wearing a Batman t-shirt at 3 a.m. when there's no traffic, and the homeless noticed me. So let's end chapter 7 there.